With the release of Season of Discovery Phase 4, we've gotten access to a new dungeon called Demonfall Canyon. This dungeon requires you to complete a small attunement before being able to enter. Once you complete the attunement, you can now run this dungeon freely and have access to some pretty high tier loot. In this video, I'm going to run you guys through how to quickly get attuned for the dungeon, and then give you a nice breakdown of every boss fight inside. It's not your standard classic dungeon, so these bosses do have some mechanics. It's good to go in with some knowledge. To start the attunement for Demonfall Canyon, you're going to head to Emerald Sanctuary at the bottom of Felwood. Head to the Shadowtooth Emissary, the person that you started your Wild Offerings questline with, and pick up the quest Demonic Deceptions. For this quest, you're going to head over to Winterspring, and you're going to need to farm any owl beast that you see to pick up 6 penile glands. At first I was having some trouble finding these mobs as they were super contested, but a buddy gave me some good information to head down south to this area right here, and you should have no problem completing this quest within 30 minutes. The drop is a shared drop, so feel free to invite anyone you see to your group, as it will make this a lot easier. After you complete the quest, head back to the Emerald Sanctuary at the bottom of Felwood and talk to the Shadowtooth Emissary again. And as a reward, you're going to get the Shadowtooth Illusion Ward. This is a trinket that you're going to be able to just put on to be able to see the instance portal in Ashenvale. Now for the first boss, Grimroot. Make sure that you clear all the trash around him before pulling. This is very important. He only has 2 real mechanics. The first mechanic is that you're going to want to move him away from the green stuff that he puts on the ground. And don't stand in it because you'll take a ton of damage. The only other mechanic we have to worry about here is that we have to interrupt Gloom to avoid massive AoE damage. Other than that, this boss is pretty easy, just burn him down as fast as possible. The next boss we're going to fight in the dungeon is the Destructor's Wraith. He has 2 mechanics as well. He'll cast Destructor's Devastation, which deals heavy damage in a line coming out of the front and the back of him. To avoid damage and still DPS at the same time, make sure you're standing directly at his side like you saw me do here in this video. The only other thing that we have to worry about here is that he will begin casting Nether Nova, which does more damage if you're closer to him. When he begins casting this, run away to avoid taking massive or even possibly fatal damage. The further away you are, the less damage you will take. That's pretty much it, just rinse and repeat until you burn him down. The next boss we're going to fight here is Zilbagob, a Goblin Shredder boss. He will cast Kerosene Kick, which will stun you and do AoE damage. I've noticed that you can kind of jump over this to avoid taking very much damage. I'm not sure if this is a bug or if it's intentional, but it does work. He'll also cast Chaos Chop, which is a Blast Wave type ability that you can just heal through. And lastly, he'll cast Saw Blades on the ground, which you need to just do your best to avoid. Other than that, burn him down. He's pretty easy. The next boss we're going to talk about is Pyranus. He will summon mushrooms that can blow up and knock you back if you're too close to them, so just do your best to avoid them. And he'll also summon Dreadlashers that will deal damage to everyone in your group and also heal other Dreadlashers. So make sure when these spawn, you're taking them down as fast as possible, one by one. Eventually, he will vanish and spawn a bunch of these Dreadlashers. Just take them down and pick the boss back up when he reappears. This is probably one of the easiest bosses in here. For this next boss, things get a little bit harder. Diathorus the Seeker is the second to last boss in the dungeon. He will cast Carrion Swarm, which you can move away from, and it's indicated by those big green clouds with the bugs flying around in them on the ground. He'll also cast Shadow Bolts that you can interrupt to help conserve healer mana, but the main important mechanic here is that you interrupt Veil of Shadow, which is an AoE curse that reduces healing drastically and will most likely cause a wipe, so you absolutely need to make sure this gets interrupted. At around 50%, he will start putting fire on the ground and hit quite a bit harder, so now it's time to pop your offensive and defensive cooldowns and bring him down as fast as possible. Hellscream's Phantom is the last boss in the dungeon, and he'll cast mirror images that spawn around the room. Do your best to avoid being near them as they do a ton of damage. He'll also pick someone up and start swinging them around, dealing some damage, but this mechanic isn't that scary. He'll occasionally fear, which drops all threat, so make sure your tank is on point. And if you can, use anything you can to negate the fear. For example, if you have a bear tank, have them use Berserk so that they don't get feared and lose all threat. If this happens, the boss will target one person and most likely one-shot them, especially if they're a caster or a rogue. As a rogue, I found it really easy to vanish or pop evasion if my tank got feared and the boss was targeting me. If those were on cooldown, I was kind of able to kite him for a few seconds with sprint to stay alive until the tank came out of fear and picked him back up. Use your best judgment here and try to kite or stay alive if your tank gets feared. Other than that, this boss is not that hard. Those are all the mechanics that he has. Just burn him down and bring home the loot. If you guys enjoyed the video, please be sure to give it a like. It definitely helps me out with the algorithm, and subscribe to the channel. Turn on those post notifications so you don't miss the next time I post a video. And if you want, come hang out with me on Twitch. I stream Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time at twitch.tv/hammerdance. There's a link to that in the description below. Thank you all so much for watching and listening in. I'll see you all in the next one.